today's lesson is going to kind of help you begin to outline and brainstorm the different elements of your narrative. So there are quite a few graphic organizers that you could use, and all of them are very useful. And I guess it's just, at this point, it's just personal preference on which one you would like to use. So I'm going to do my story outline, and I'm going to plug it into the various graphic organizers, so you can kind of see how to use each graphic organizer, and then you decide which one is best for you and your narrative. So the first one here is a basic chronological graphic organizer. It's very straightforward and cut and dry. So the story that I think I want to talk about is a moment when I had to overcome an obstacle. So when I had to overcome an obstacle. Okay, so the characters in the story, this is a true story. So the characters are simply the people in my life. So it'd be me, my family, and also the obstacle that I'm going to talk about overcoming is quarantine and how to balance life. So you guys, my students, are going to be in the story because a big part of when we went into quarantine in March was trying to balance my work, my family, and just my own mental state. So me, my family, and my job/students. This story takes place. Well, setting is always time and location. So the time, now let's be as specific as possible. This will help your writing. The time is spring of 2020, and the location is Syracuse, New York. And let's see, and let's say in my recent past and still today. And the reason I say that is because a lot of my story is going to be in reflection. It's going to be in the past tense. And then I'm going to continue my story in the present. Now, that's a strategy. You might decide to write your story in the present tense the entire time. So you might just take your reader from the day that everything started, and they might take the journey with you, or you might write in reflection and then bring your audience to your current time and then take them with you to the future. So the action begins when, well, for me, everything happened really quickly, but I think the first thing I remember was the action began when all of us teachers were sitting around eating lunch in A317, my classroom, and Mrs. Bucktooth said that she really thought a shutdown was going to happen. So I know that this event kind of started for me when this conversation happened. Now, I could go into lots of detail about this conversation, but I don't need to in my outline. When I go to write, I will elaborate on this section. Then we go in chronological order. Then I went home and had the same conversation with my husband and brother. Now I know, again, this is not complete, but I know that in this paragraph, I'm going to have to elaborate on describing the event, describing the sounds, the smells, my feelings. But this gives me a starting point for what I want to talk about in this paragraph. Next, the The next thing that happened for us is we had an emergency staff meeting. And found out that we would, in fact, be shutting down. I think we had an emergency staff meeting, or maybe it was an email. Oh, I'll fix it. Okay. So you can see I'm almost done with my story. You know, I'm being very specific, so I might have to add in a couple events. After that was after that, March 17th was somewhat of a blur. The next 6 weeks, I was in survival mode, just trying not to drown in, let's see, my emotions. My work, and still trying to be a good mom. So this paragraph is going to talk about the next 6 weeks and what I did. Now, I definitely need to put another vent here just because my story is not done. My story, the central idea is going to be about an obstacle that I overcame. So I really do need to start talking about how I began to deal with this obstacle. After 6 weeks, I realized that I needed to have more balance in my life. So then this paragraph, I'm going to talk about how I started to overcome that obstacle. I realized that we all needed to support one another. And so I made this shift in my mentality. The story ends, well, it's not really ending for me. The story continues as I am still learning how to support myself and the people I care about. So this paragraph will talk about how I'm going to do that. But I know that I am handling all this pressure much better now that I understand I understand. And then I'll go into my resolution, how I'm, I might be a work in progress, but I'm continuing to grow and handle the situation. This is the obstacle that was probably one of the hardest things for me to ever do in my life. Okay, so I just went through, I have an outline. Now, here's another graphic organizer, and I'm, just going to take the same information and plug it into here. So here, the topic of the story is a moment when I had to overcome an obstacle. But I'm going to say, maybe here I'll say COVID dilemma. So that's what I'm going to call my story. Author's name, Mrs. Osterman. Main characters. Well, the main characters would be the ones up here. So me, my family. Students. Work. Friends. Setting. Setting would be the same thing. Syracuse, New York, spring of 2020. Problem, quarantine. Problem. Handling. Solution. Rest. Flexibility. Hope. And love. And an understanding that I can't fix or do it all. Okay, so this graphic organizer actually has a solution or a resolution, whereas in the first one didn't. It just said it ended. So maybe this one works a little bit better for you. So the events are exactly these. So the actions begin with all of these right here that I talked about in the first graphic organizer would go right here. So event 1, this is what happened. This is what happened. Then this is what happened. So the first thing that happened, we were eating lunch. And so those all go there. So that's event 1. Event 2, event 3, event 4, and so on. So a lot of these graphic organizers do a similar thing, but it just depends on how you want to outline your story before you begin writing. So I think it was actually really helpful in this second graphic organizer to establish the solution or the resolution before I started writing. The first graphic organizer didn't ask me to do that. Okay, so this is another one. Same exact thing. Characters, who are the people? Setting, where does it take place? The problem, for me, it was quarantine. It was the problem was being quarantined and being stressed out about how to balance everything. So the events of the story, same thing. So the first thing that happened was I had lunch with the teachers and we had a conversation about what was going to happen. The second thing that what happened was I had the same conversation with my husband, and then the next morning we found out that in fact we were closing down. The next thing that happened was the first stage of quarantine, was the 6 weeks of trying to figure out what to do and keep everybody at peace, but keep everybody at peace, but at the same time balance the life. And last, maybe I need to add in one more box here. The next thing that happened was coming to some sort of understanding, and it's still happening. So these 4 boxes might be good for you, or you might need to add in a box. Problem solved. Well, this is the solution or the resolution. Oh, sorry, problem solved by. It was solved by me, but not by myself. It was solved as a team, because that was what I had to decide, was that I can't do it all, that I needed support and that we need to work together. So how is it solved? By understanding that I can't do it all. How does writing this story make you feel? This story for me, doing this, even for you as the teacher, just doing this and outlining this has been very therapeutic. It has been very remembering what is important helps me ignore what is not important. So those are 3 different graphic organizers that really work in the same fashion. They just are a little different.